My son-in-law called me a blue-collar loser who wasn't worthy of attending his wedding. I just nodded. He had no idea what was coming. I thought I'd seen it all in my almost 60 years. But nothing could have prepared me for the words that hit me like a physical blow when I called to ask about my own daughter's wedding. She didn't want you ruining it. Can you believe that? Those were the very first words out of my son-in-law's mouth. My heart just stopped. It was yesterday. Just yesterday. My phone was pressed to my ear, a hopeful smile on my face, and there I was, standing in my kitchen, picturing Emma as a bride. I was so ready to celebrate. But Alex Davis, Stanford MBA, Meta product manager, Emma's husband of exactly 18 hours, delivered the news with the chilling dismissal of someone canceling a business meeting. No congratulations, no invitation. Just that. She was worried you'd embarrass her in front of our friends, he continued, that smirk practically audible in his voice. You know how it is with your background. I actually smiled. A slow, quiet smile. Because Alex? He had absolutely no idea who he was really talking to. If you've ever been underestimated, judged because of how you look or where you come from, this story is for you. This is for all of us who know that true strength isn't about pedigree, it's about what you build. Let me rewind a bit. My name's Tom Wilson. I'm 59. And for the past 8 months, I'd been watching my daughter, my Emma, slowly, heartbreakingly disappear from my life. It wasn't because of anything I did. It was because her new husband decided I wasn't good enough for his fancy world. It started subtly, like a slow drip, drip, drip. Emma started declining our Sunday dinners. Alex and I have plans, she'd say. Those plans always seemed to involve his Stanford crew, his Meta colleagues, people who, according to Alex, wouldn't really understand our family dynamic. My family dynamic? I drive a Ford F-450 Super Duty, for crying out loud. Paid $180,000 for it. Custom leather interior. But Alex? He only saw the truck part. When I'd pick Emma up for lunch, he'd make these snide comments. Really, Em? You're riding in that thing? Like my truck was some embarrassment instead of a vehicle worth more than his leased Tesla. Then there were the boots. I wear Lucchese Customs, $2,800 handmade leather. To most folks they look like damn good boots. To Alex they were proof I was blue collar. He'd actually wince when I walked into their pristine Georgetown condo, like I was tracking mud on his floors. I overheard him tell Emma once, "Your dad's nice, but maybe we should meet my colleagues somewhere else." You know how first impressions work in tech. Emma, she started changing. My confident, proud daughter began apologizing for me. Sorry, Dad talks a lot about construction stuff. Or, and this one really stung, Dad didn't go to college so he doesn't really get the tech world. That last one? She just about broke my heart. Because I do have a degree. An MBA from the University of Texas. Earned it nights and weekends while building Wilson Construction from the ground up. But Alex? He never asked. He just assumed. The social media posts were even worse. Emma actually told me I wasn't supposed to be on Instagram. But I am. And I saw Alex's stories from their networking events. Sleek bars, downtown Austin, tech executives in expensive suits, everyone holding craft cocktails, talking about disruption. Emma was in some of those photos, smiling, but I could see it in her eyes. She looked so tense. In her Stanford alumni group, she described herself as a first-generation college graduate from a traditional family. Traditional. That was her little code word for embarrassing. What Alex didn't know, what Emma seemed to have conveniently forgotten, was how that Stanford education was funded. That $320,000 tuition, room, board, living expenses for 4 years? That came from Wilson Construction. From the empire I built with these hands that he found so distasteful. The breaking point, the moment everything shifted, came at a company picnic Alex's team hosted in Zilker Park. Emma invited me reluctantly. I showed up in my typical attire, clean jeans, button-down shirt, those embarrassing Lucchese boots. I watched Alex introduce Emma to his colleagues. This is my girlfriend, Emma. No mention of her last name. No, meet her father. When someone actually asked about her family, Alex smoothly redirected. Em's very independent, self-made, like all the best people in tech. I spent 2 hours at that picnic feeling invisible. Alex's colleagues would politely nod when Emma introduced me, then immediately turn back to conversations about IPOs and venture funding. One guy actually patted my shoulder and said, "Construction, huh? Must be nice working with your hands." He said it like he was talking to a particularly well-trained golden retriever. Very authentic. The ride home was quiet. Emma stared out the window of my $180,000 embarrassing, truck. Finally she spoke. Dad, maybe you could dress differently when you meet my friends? Just, blend in more. That night, I did something I hadn't done in years. I looked at myself in the mirror. And for the first time, I actually wondered if my daughter was ashamed of me. If the man who'd worked 60-hour weeks to put her through Stanford, who'd taught her the value of honest work, was now just a liability to her happiness. What Alex couldn't see, what neither of them understood, was that I wasn't just Tom Wilson, construction worker. I was Tom Wilson, CEO of a company that had fundamentally shaped the Austin tech boom they were all so proud of. But understanding, I promised myself, would come soon enough. The phone call that changed everything came on Wednesday, November 20th, at exactly 9:47 p.m. Alex had been drinking. I could tell from his voice, loosened by whiskey, emboldened by whatever conversation he'd just finished with his Stanford buddies. Tom, we need to talk, he started, skipping any pleasantries. This whole father of the bride thing? It's not happening. What do you mean, son? I asked, my voice calm, almost too calm. Don't call me son. His voice carried that particular edge rich kids get when they're about to explain why they're better than you. Look, Emma and I have been discussing it. Your presence at our events creates awkward situations. Awkward how? Come on, Tom. You know how. The truck. The boots. The way you talk about concrete and construction sites. My colleagues don't know what to do with that. I sat my coffee cup down, kept my voice level. I talk about my work because that's what I do for a living. Right. And that's fine for you. But Emma is trying to build a career in tech. She needs to network with people who think strategically, who understand innovation and disruption, not... He paused, searching for the perfect insult. Not blue-collar thinking. Blue-collar thinking you wouldn't understand. It's about intellectual sophistication, about seeing the big picture. Emma's brilliant. She graduated from Stanford. She deserves to be around people who can match her intelligence level. That's when something shifted inside me. 25 years of building a business, of earning respect through results rather than pedigree, of proving myself in boardrooms across Texas. And this kid thought I couldn't understand strategic thinking? Alex, I said, my voice dangerously soft. What exactly do you think I do? Construction, right? You build things. Look, there's nothing wrong with that. Society needs people who work with their hands. But Emma's moved beyond that world. Moved beyond. My voice didn't waver. Tom, she has an MBA from Stanford. She works for one of the most innovative companies in the world. She's part of something bigger than building things. I smiled. A real, genuine smile, though he couldn't see it through the phone. Son, I said, sorry Alex. Can I ask you something? What? Do you know where Meta's Austin data center is? A confused pause. Yeah, it's out in East Austin somewhere. Why? How about Google's new server farm? The one supporting their Texas cloud operations. I don't really deal with infrastructure. That's not my department. Amazon's fulfillment center expansion? The one that's going to handle same-day delivery for the entire Central Texas region. Tom, what's your point? I work on product development, not logistics. My coffee had gone cold, but I was just getting warm. My point, Alex, is that you might want to know a little more about who you're dealing with. What's that supposed to mean? It means, son, I said, letting the word hang in the air, that you and I are going to have a very interesting conversation soon. And then I hung up. Alex had no idea what was coming next. That night, I didn't sleep a wink. Instead, I sat in my home office, surrounded by 30 years of Wilson construction history, and made a decision that would change everything. The office walls tell a story Alex never bothered to ask about. There's the photo of me shaking hands with Michael Dell at the groundbreaking for Dell's new campus expansion. Another shows me with the governor of Texas at the ribbon cutting for the state's largest renewable energy project. And there, in a simple frame, a newspaper clipping from the Austin Business Journal, local builder powers tech boom. Wilson Construction Incorporated $680 million in contracts. $680 million. That's not blue-collar pocket change. See, what Alex didn't understand, what Emma had apparently forgotten to mention, is that Wilson Construction doesn't just build things. We build the infrastructure that makes the modern world work. And in Austin, Texas, that means we build the backbone of the tech industry. That metadata center Alex couldn't locate? Wilson Construction broke ground on it 18 months ago. It's a $280 million project, 180,000 square feet of climate-controlled space that will house the servers processing data for millions of users. My crews poured the foundations. My project managers coordinate with Meta's engineers. My signature is on every permit. Google's server farm? That's another $230 million in Wilson construction contracts. We're not just building warehouses, we're creating the physical infrastructure that supports cloud computing for half the Southwest. Amazon's fulfillment center expansion? $170 million more. 3 separate buildings, automated sorting systems, the most advanced logistics facility in Texas. Added up, that's $680 million in active contracts with the 3 companies that basically run the internet. And that's just current projects. I pulled out my phone and scrolled through my contacts. These weren't the numbers of other construction workers. Janet Moore, VP of Operations at Meta. Kevin Brown, Infrastructure Director at Google. Sarah Johnson, Austin's mayor, who owed her political career to the economic development my projects brought to East Austin. But there was more. Alex didn't know about much more. I opened my safe and pulled out a folder marked Real Estate Portfolio. Inside were deeds to 240 acres of prime commercial land in East Austin. Property I'd been acquiring quietly for 15 years, back when it was cheap and everyone thought that part of town would never develop. Now those 240 acres are worth $85 million. And they sit directly in the path of every major tech company's expansion plans. Want to build a new campus in Austin? You're probably going to need my permission. The Austin Convention Center renovation was the crown jewel. $32 million to modernize the facility where tech conferences, product launches, and corporate events happen year-round. My company holds the primary construction contract, which means I control access, scheduling, and operations during the renovation, including next week's Meta Q4 product showcase, where Alex was planning to announce his promotion to senior product manager. I picked up my desk phone and dialed Janet Moore's direct number. She answered on the second ring. Tom, good to hear from you. How's the convention center project coming? Right on schedule, Janet. Listen, I need to ask you about one of your employees. Alex Davis, product management. Alex? Sure, I know Alex. He's been pushing hard for a promotion. Actually presenting at our Q4 showcase next week. Why do you ask? He's family, sort of. Just wanted to make sure he's representing your company well. Oh, family connections. I didn't realize you had ties to Meta employees. Alex is, well, he's ambitious. Sometimes a little too ambitious, if you know what I mean. How so? Between you and me, Tom, he's been taking credit for other people's work, making some pretty bold claims about projects he had minimal involvement with. We're keeping an eye on him. Interesting, I mused. Well, I'm sure everything will work out appropriately. It always does. Hey Tom, you'll be at the showcase next week, right? It's in your building after all. Wouldn't miss it. After I hung up, I made 2 more calls. One to Kevin at Google, checking on the status of our server farm timeline. One small delay in our construction schedule would push their project back 3 months and cost them millions in lost efficiency. The second call went to my attorney. I needed to review the specific terms of our construction contracts, particularly the clauses about project delays and their impacts on client operations. By morning I had a plan. Alex thought Emma was embarrassed by her construction worker father. He was about to learn that the entire tech industry he was so proud of was built on foundations I'd laid. Time to set some boundaries. Monday morning, November 25th. I made 3 phone calls that would absolutely ruin Alex's week. The first went to my project manager at the Meta data center site. Jimmy, we need to slow things down a bit on Building C. Problems, boss? Permit issues. The city's asking for additional environmental impact assessments before we can proceed with the server installation phase. Jimmy knew better than to ask follow-up questions when I used that tone. How long are we talking? 2 weeks, maybe 3. Make sure Meta's people understand it's completely out of our hands. It wasn't, of course. I sit on the Austin Planning Commission's Infrastructure Advisory Board. One phone call to the right person, and suddenly there were routine concerns about soil composition and drainage that required additional review time. Perfectly legal, completely within contract terms, and absolutely devastating to Alex's product timeline. The second call went to my contact at Google. Kevin, Tom Wilson here. We've hit a snag with the cooling system installation at your server farm. What kind of snag? He asked, a hint of worry in his voice. Supplier sent the wrong specifications for the industrial chillers. We're going to need to special order the correct units. How long? 6 weeks, maybe 8. You know how it is with specialized equipment. The truth was simpler. Wilson Construction maintains exclusive relationships with 3 major industrial cooling suppliers. When I suggested they might want to prioritize other clients' orders for a few weeks, they understood completely. Business relationships work both ways. Kevin wasn't happy, but he knew the construction business well enough to understand that delays happen. Any way to expedite? He pressed. I'll see what I can do, but you know how suppliers are when they smell desperation. The third call was more delicate. Sarah, it's Tom Wilson. Tom, how's retirement treating you? Austin Mayor Sarah Johnson and I had history. Not the kind Alex would understand, but the kind that built cities. When she was a city council member trying to bring tech jobs to Austin, I was the one who convinced the planning board to fast-track commercial development in East Austin. My projects created 3,400 permanent jobs and generated $2.1 billion in economic activity. Can't complain, I chuckled. Listen, I need a small favor. Name it. Amazon's been pushing for expedited permits on their fulfillment center expansion. I'm wondering if we might want to slow that process down just a bit. Any particular reason? Let's just say I have some concerns about their local management practices. Sarah understood. In municipal politics, concerns about management practices could mean anything from workplace safety to environmental compliance. The beauty was, it didn't matter what it actually meant. The result would be the same. I'll have the permit office request additional documentation, she said. Probably add 3-4 weeks to the timeline. Much appreciated. The dominoes started falling by Tuesday afternoon. Alex called Emma, absolutely panicked. Babe, we've got a crisis at work. 3 of our major infrastructure projects just hit delays simultaneously. Emma, still believing her father was just a simple construction worker, offered sympathy. That sounds stressful. It's worse than stressful. My product launch depends on that metadata center being operational. If it's delayed, our entire Q4 timeline collapses. Can't you work around it? She asked, bewildered. Work around it? Emma, you don't understand. This isn't like designing a website where you can just adjust a few pixels. Physical infrastructure is physical. If the servers can't be installed, they can't be installed. What about your other projects? Google's server farm is delayed indefinitely. Some supply chain issue with cooling systems. And Amazon's fulfillment center expansion just got held up in permitting hell. It's like someone coordinated all these problems to happen at once. I wasn't someone. I was the someone who controlled all these projects. But the real beauty of the situation was the reaction from Alex's superiors at Meta. Janet Moore called me Wednesday morning, frustration clear in her voice. Tom, I hate to put pressure on you, but this data center delay is causing major headaches. We have a product launch dependent on that infrastructure. I understand completely, Janet, I said, all empathy. Unfortunately, the city's environmental review process is out of my control. Is there anything we can do to expedite? Well, I said thoughtfully, sometimes these reviews go faster when the city feels confident about the project's local support. What kind of local support? Community engagement. Making sure the right people understand the value of the project. People like you. People like me. By Thursday, Alex was working 16-hour days, trying to manage a crisis he couldn't understand. How could 3 separate infrastructure projects managed by different companies hit problems simultaneously? He was about to find out. Saturday, December 7th. Alex asked to meet me for coffee. He looked terrible. 5 days of crisis management had left him hollow-eyed and shaky. When I walked into the Starbucks on South Lamar, he was already there, hunched over his laptop, frantically typing emails. Tom? He stood up, extending his hand like we were business associates instead of family. Thanks for meeting me. Of course, son. He didn't correct the son this time. That was progress. Look, I need to ask you something, and I hope you'll be straight with me. I sat down across from him, noting how he'd chosen a corner table away from other customers. Privacy. This wasn't going to be a pleasant conversation. Shoot. The construction delays, the infrastructure problems. Emma mentioned you work in construction, and I'm wondering, do you know anything about what's happening with these projects? He looked so desperate. I sipped my coffee, took my time. Which projects? Meta's data center, Google's server farm, Amazon's fulfillment expansion. His voice carried a note of desperation. They're all delayed simultaneously, and it's destroying my product timeline. Sounds frustrating. Tom, please. I know we haven't exactly connected, but this is my career we're talking about. If you have any insights, any contacts who might know what's going on. I sat down my coffee and looked at him directly. Really looked at him. This Stanford MBA, this tech executive who'd spent 8 months teaching my daughter to be ashamed of her father. Alex, can I ask you something? Sure. What exactly do you think I do for a living? You're in construction. You build things. I pulled out my phone, opened my photo gallery and set it on the table between us. The screen showed me standing next to a massive concrete foundation, wearing a hard hat, shaking hands with a man in an expensive suit. Do you recognize the man I'm standing with? Alex squinted at the photo. No. Should I? That's Sundar Pichai, CEO of Google. This photo was taken at the groundbreaking ceremony for their Austin server farm. The one that's currently delayed. Alex's face went very pale. I swiped to the next photo. This one's from the Meta data center groundbreaking. That's me with Janet Moore, VP of Operations. Swipe. Amazon Fulfillment Center. Me with their Regional Infrastructure Director. Swipe. Austin Mayor Sarah Johnson and me at the Economic Development Council meeting where we discussed bringing more tech companies to Austin. Alex stared at the phone like it was a bomb that might explode. Tom, what are you saying? I'm saying, son, I emphasize the word, that Wilson Construction built the infrastructure your entire career depends on. And right now that infrastructure is experiencing some complications. Wilson Construction, he said like he was tasting something bitter. That's your company? $420 million in annual revenue, 340 employees, exclusive contracts with every major tech company operating in Texas. Alex's hands started shaking slightly. The delays are completely within the normal scope of construction project management. Sometimes permits take longer. Sometimes suppliers prioritize other clients. Sometimes environmental reviews discover concerns that require additional study time. You're doing this. You're sabotaging my projects, he accused, his voice rising. I smiled, the same quiet smile I'd given him on that phone call 3 weeks ago. I'm not sabotaging anything, Alex. I'm just less motivated to expedite solutions than I might normally be. This is insane. You can't destroy my career because you're upset about a wedding. I'm not upset about a wedding, son. I'm upset about 8 months of systematic disrespect. I'm upset about watching my daughter learn to be ashamed of the man who built her opportunities. Alex stared at me, finally understanding the scope of his miscalculation. What do you want? Respect, I said simply. For me. For Emma. For the work that built the world you're so proud of. He nodded quickly, too quickly, like a man agreeing to anything to save his career. But Alex had one more mistake left to make. Alex Davis, it turned out, was not the type of man who accepted defeat gracefully. On Monday, December 10th, Emma called me, her voice tight with confusion. Dad, did you see Alex's LinkedIn post? I hadn't. I'm not much for social media, but Emma read it to me over the phone, and with each word I felt my carefully controlled anger crystallize into something harder, something cold. Toxic masculinity in the workplace. When blue-collar insecurity threatens innovation. I've been reflecting on a troubling trend I've witnessed in Austin's business community. Traditional industries, threatened by the innovation economy, are using their political connections and old boy networks to sabotage progress. We've all encountered the type, insecure about their lack of formal education, resentful of younger professionals who've embraced change, clinging to outdated notions of respect that really mean deference to obsolete authority structures. These individuals often hide behind blue-collar mythology, the dignity of hard work narrative, while using backroom deals and cronyism to undermine companies that represent the future of our economy. As someone who's witnessed this firsthand, I want to encourage my fellow innovators not to be intimidated by these tactics. Progress requires us to move beyond the limitations of previous generations, even when those generations resist change. The tech industry succeeds because we value merit over connections, innovation over tradition, intelligence over brute force. Let's not let the insecurities of yesterday's economy hold back tomorrow's solutions. The post had 247 likes and 89 comments, mostly from Alex's Stanford network and Meta colleagues. Emma, read me a few. So true. Old Austin versus New Austin in a nutshell. Classic example of legacy privilege trying to control emerging markets. This is why I moved to Austin from SF. Same innovation, less resistance from local politics. Emma's voice cracked as she finished reading. Dad, he's talking about you, isn't he? I sat down my coffee, walked to my office window and looked out at the Austin skyline. Half the buildings I could see had been constructed by Wilson Construction. The cranes building the others belonged to my competitors, but they were using concrete from my suppliers, steel from my vendors, permits expedited through relationships I'd spent 30 years building. Yes, sweetheart. He's talking about me. But it's not true. You're not trying to hold back progress. You're part of progress. For the first time in 8 months, Emma sounded like my daughter again. I know that, honey. And soon everyone else will too. What Alex didn't understand about LinkedIn is that it's not just a platform for tech professionals. Construction executives use it too. City planners, economic development officials, the people who actually build the infrastructure that supports innovation. By Tuesday morning, my phone was ringing off the hook. Kevin Brown from Google called first. Tom, did you see this Davis kid's post? The one essentially calling you a corrupt old boy network operator. I saw it. You know that's horseshit, right? You've been nothing but professional and forward-thinking on our server farm project. I appreciate that, Kevin. I'm just saying, if this kid thinks he can publicly attack the integrity of our construction partners, he's got another thing coming. Janet Moore's call came an hour later. Tom, I owe you an apology. I had no idea Alex Davis was your son-in-law when I shared some concerns about his work performance. And now he's posting this. This attack on local business leaders as if you haven't been instrumental in bringing tech companies to Austin. Janet, you don't need to apologize. Actually, I do. Because Alex's behavior reflects poorly on Meta's commitment to community partnerships. We value our relationships with established Austin businesses. Mayor Sarah Johnson's call was the most interesting. Tom, I'm getting questions from reporters about this LinkedIn post. Some blogger wants to write about entrenched interests blocking tech innovation in Austin. What kind of questions? About whether city planning is influenced by construction company donations. About whether permit processes are fair to out-of-state companies. And what are you telling them? I'm telling them that Tom Wilson has brought more economic development to Austin than any 10 tech executives combined. And I'm suggesting they might want to do some research before they write stories about the Austin business community. But the most satisfying response came from an unexpected source. Emma texted me Wednesday evening. Dad, I shared Alex's post with some UX friends. They think he sounds like an entitled ass. One girl said her dad's a contractor in California and he's the smartest person she knows. I'm starting to remember why I used to be proud of you. Alex's social media strategy had backfired spectacularly. Instead of rallying the tech community against the outdated construction industry, he'd reminded people that their servers run in buildings someone had to actually build. But I wasn't done with Alex Davis yet. Not even close. Because tomorrow night was Meta's Q4 product showcase, and Alex had no idea he was about to present his promotion pitch in a building I owned, to an audience that included my closest business partners. Wednesday night, I sat in my home office and assembled a complete dossier on Alex Davis. Not because I wanted to destroy him. I'm not a vindictive man. But because tomorrow night the truth was going to come out and I wanted to be thorough. The evidence fell into 4 categories: financial, professional, personal, and corporate. Financial evidence. Alex's Georgetown condo rental, $4,800 per month, according to the lease Emma had shown me. Total annual housing cost, $57,600. My East Austin ranch? Paid off 15 years ago. Current market value, $2.8 million. Annual property taxes, $31,200. The land alone was worth more than Alex's annual salary. Plus stock options subject to vesting schedules and performance metrics. Wilson Construction's annual revenue, $420 million with net profit margins of 18.5%. Alex's LinkedIn claims versus reality. He'd listed himself as lead product manager for projects where Meta's own internal documents showed him as a contributing team member or supporting analyst. Personal evidence. Screenshots of Alex's private Instagram stories, saved by Emma and shared with me during our coffee conversation last week. Images of him at expensive restaurants with captions like, "When you're slumming it with the working class, after our family dinners." Text message chains between Alex and his Stanford friends, forwarded to me by Emma after she found them on his laptop. Highlights included, Emma's dad showed up in actual work boots to a networking event. I'm mortified. Construction workers who think they understand business are the worst. Like, we get it. You can pour concrete. Having to explain tech concepts to blue-collar family is exhausting. It's like talking to a child. Corporate evidence. Email correspondence between Janet Moore and me regarding the Austin Convention Center renovation project. Key excerpt. Tom, your team's professionalism and attention to detail make these events possible. We're grateful for partners who understand that infrastructure excellence supports innovation excellence. Austin Business Journal's Power 100 list for 2024, featuring me at number 23. Tom Wilson's construction empire has quietly become the foundation Austin's tech boom was built on. Permits and planning documents for the convention center renovation. all bearing my signature as primary contractor and facility access coordinator. The most damning evidence, however, was Alex's own professional record. Meta's internal performance reviews, which Janet had mentioned, showed a troubling pattern. Alex consistently took credit for team achievements while deflecting responsibility for project delays. His promotion to senior product manager wasn't the coronation he'd been telling Emma about. It was probationary, subject to successful completion of the Q4 product showcase. The same product showcase that would be held in my building, presented to an audience that included my business partners, delayed by infrastructure problems I'd orchestrated. I printed everything. Contract copies, financial statements, email chains, photographs, performance reviews, city planning documents. 300 pages of evidence demonstrating that the construction hillbilly Alex had been mocking for 8 months controlled more of Austin's tech infrastructure than most people realized. But the real power wasn't in the evidence itself. It was in the audience that would witness its revelation. Tomorrow night's Meta Q4 showcase wasn't just a company event. It was Austin's quarterly tech industry networking summit. Google executives would be there to discuss partnership opportunities. Amazon representatives would attend to explore collaboration projects. Austin city officials would participate to demonstrate municipal support for tech innovation. And Tom Wilson, humble construction worker, blue-collar embarrassment, outdated obstacle to progress, would be there as the primary contractor responsible for facility operations. I called Janet Moore one final time. Janet, tomorrow night's event, do you need me to be on site for building management? Actually, yes. We've had some concerns about AV equipment and climate control. Could you be available if we need technical support? Of course, I said, a slow smile spreading across my face. I'll be there by 6. Perfect. And Tom. Alex Davis will be presenting tomorrow night, his big promotion pitch. I know he's family, but, well, between you and me, this presentation needs to go well for his career prospects. I'm sure it will be memorable, I replied. After I hung up, I smiled. The same quiet smile Alex had heard in his voice 3 weeks ago when he thought he was dismissing a nobody. Tomorrow night, everyone would learn who the nobody really was. Thursday, December 18th, 6 p.m. Austin Convention Center, Main Exhibition Hall. I arrived early as always. Construction project managers learn to control environments before events happen, not during a crisis. The hall looked spectacular. 40-foot LED screens, professional lighting, seating for 300 of Austin's tech elite. Meta had spared no expense for their Q4 showcase. And why shouldn't they? They were celebrating a record year of growth, powered by infrastructure that kept their servers running efficiently. Infrastructure built by Wilson Construction. Tom? Janet Moore spotted me near the main entrance. Thank God you're here. We're having issues with the climate control system. The temperature needs to be exactly 72 degrees for the equipment to function properly. I'll handle it. I walked to the building management console, made a few adjustments and returned. Should be perfect in 10 minutes. You're a lifesaver. Oh, and there's someone I'd like you to meet. She led me toward a group of executives near the registration table. Everyone, this is Tom Wilson, owner of Wilson Construction. Tom's company renovated this entire facility. Handshakes all around. These weren't Alex's friends from Stanford. These were serious business people who understood the difference between talking about innovation and actually building it. Tom, said a woman with graying hair and sharp eyes. Sarah Martinez, VP of Operations for Google Austin. Your team's work on our server farm has been exceptional. Despite the recent delays, added Kevin Brown, appearing beside her with a slight smile, which I understand were completely beyond your control. Sometimes these projects hit unexpected complications, I replied diplomatically. The important thing is quality results, said another voice. Tom Wilson always delivers quality results. I turned to see Mayor Sarah Johnson approaching with her usual political confidence. Tom's been instrumental in bringing tech jobs to Austin. We're lucky to have construction partners who understand the importance of innovation infrastructure. The conversations continued as guests arrived. Austin's tech community isn't huge. Everyone knows everyone. And Tom Wilson was apparently known as the guy who built the buildings that kept their businesses running. Alex arrived at 6:45 p.m. He looked confident, polished, ready for his big moment. Custom-tailored suit, expensive shoes, the bearing of a man about to achieve everything he'd worked toward. He scanned the room, nodding at colleagues, clearly pleased with the turnout for his presentation. He spotted me near the back of the hall and froze. For a moment our eyes met across the room. I could see him processing my presence, trying to understand why his blue-collar father-in-law was at Meta's exclusive corporate event. I smiled that same quiet smile. Alex approached slowly, like a man walking toward his own execution. "Tom, what are you doing here?" "Building management," I said simply. "Someone needs to make sure the AV equipment works properly." "Building management?" His voice carried a note of confusion. "This is my building, Alex." "Well, technically it belongs to the city of Austin, but Wilson Construction holds the renovation contract. I'm responsible for making sure events like this run smoothly." Before Alex could respond, Janet Moore appeared at the podium. "Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Meta's Q4 Austin Showcase. Tonight, we're celebrating not just our achievements, but the partnerships that make innovation possible." The lights dimmed. Alex straightened his tie, took a deep breath, and walked toward the stage. Our first presenter tonight is Alex Davis, who's been instrumental in coordinating several of our major infrastructure projects. Polite applause as Alex took the stage. He looked confident, professional, ready to deliver the presentation that would secure his promotion. "Thank you, Janet. Good evening, everyone. I'm excited to share some remarkable achievements from Meta's Austin operations." He clicked to his first slide. Q4 infrastructure milestones. This quarter, we've made significant progress on 3 major projects that will define Meta's Texas expansion strategy. Second slide, data center excellence. Our new data center represents a $280 million investment in Austin's tech infrastructure. Despite some minor construction delays, we're on track for full operational capacity by Q2 next year. I noticed several people in the audience exchanging glances. Kevin Brown from Google looked amused. Sarah Martinez was checking her phone. "The delays Alex mentioned," Janet Moore interrupted gently, "were due to permit requirements completely outside our control. Our construction partners have been exemplary throughout the process." Alex nodded quickly, too quickly. "Of course, what matters is that Meta's leadership in infrastructure development continues to set industry standards." Third slide, partnership innovation. We've also strengthened our relationships with other tech leaders. Google, Amazon, and Meta are collaborating on shared infrastructure solutions that will benefit the entire Austin community. That's when Sarah Martinez stood up. "Alex, can I ask you a question?" "Of course. You mentioned construction delays and permit issues. Are you familiar with the specific contractors working on these projects?" Alex hesitated. In the 3 weeks since our coffee shop conversation, he apparently hadn't done much research into Wilson Construction's actual role in his career. "Well, we work with several local construction companies." "Actually," said Kevin Brown, also standing, "all 3 projects, Meta's data center, Google's server farm, and Amazon's fulfillment center, use the same primary contractor." The room was getting uncomfortable. Alex sensed trouble but couldn't identify the source. That's correct. Local partnerships are important to Meta's community engagement strategy." Janet Moore walked to the center of the stage. "Alex, I think our guests would be interested to meet the man whose company built the infrastructure your presentation depends on." She gestured toward me. "Tom Wilson, would you join us on stage?" The room erupted in applause. Not polite corporate applause. Genuine appreciation from business leaders who understood exactly what they were clapping for. I walked slowly to the stage, enjoying Alex's expression as understanding finally dawned. "Ladies and gentlemen," Janet continued, "Tom Wilson, CEO of Wilson Construction, the company responsible for $680 million in active contracts that keep Austin's tech industry running." I took the microphone. "Thank you, Janet. And thank you, Alex, for that introduction to my work." Laughter rippled through the audience. "I want to address something Alex mentioned, those construction delays that have been affecting everyone's timelines." I looked directly at Alex, whose face had gone completely pale. Sometimes projects experience complications when there's insufficient respect for the people who build the foundations that support innovation. When contractors feel undervalued, they're less motivated to expedite solutions. "However," I continued, my voice clear and strong, "I'm pleased to announce that Wilson Construction has resolved all outstanding permit issues and supply chain complications. Meta's data center will be operational ahead of schedule. Google's server farm will be online by January. Amazon's fulfillment center will open on time." The applause was thunderous. Because that's what Austin's tech community deserves. Reliable infrastructure built by people who understand that innovation requires both vision and execution. I handed the microphone back to Alex, whose promotion presentation had just been completely overshadowed by the man he'd spent 8 months calling a hillbilly. "Alex," I said quietly so only he could hear, Respect isn't about degrees or salary. It's about results. And the results speak for themselves. As I walked back to my seat, the audience was buzzing with conversation. Alex stood frozen at the podium, his carefully prepared presentation suddenly irrelevant. Janet Moore rescued him by announcing a networking break, but the damage was done. Every person in that room now understood the power dynamic Alex had spent months misunderstanding. Emma appeared at my side during the break, having arrived late and witnessed the entire exchange. "Dad, I had no idea." "That's okay, sweetheart," I told her, my heart swelling. "But now you know." She looked across the room at Alex, who was standing alone near the registration table, ignored by colleagues who were busy introducing themselves to me. "What happens to Alex now?" she asked, her voice small. "That," I said, watching her husband's career prospects crumble in real time, "depends on whether he's learned anything tonight." The consequences of that December evening unfolded with the methodical precision of a construction timeline. Alex's promotion was postponed pending further review. Janet Moore delivered the news privately the following Monday, but word spread quickly through Meta's Austin office. When you publicly embarrass yourself in front of 300 industry executives, confidentiality becomes impossible. By Wednesday, Alex had been transferred to a special projects role, corporate speak for professional exile. No direct reports, no client contact, no visibility with senior management. His new office was in the basement of Meta's temporary space while their permanent facility waited for Wilson Construction to complete the data center project. The irony wasn't lost on anyone. Emma called me Thursday morning, her voice shaky but resolute. "Dad, I need to apologize." "You don't need to apologize for anything, sweetheart." "Yes, I do," she insisted. "For 8 months, I let Alex convince me that you were embarrassing, that your work wasn't important, that I needed to be ashamed of where I came from. I waited." Emma had always been thoughtful when she was ready to say something important. "I forgot that my Stanford education was paid for by Wilson Construction. That my UX design skills were developed on computer equipment you bought. That every opportunity I've had came from the foundation you built. Emma, your opportunities came from your intelligence and hard work," I reminded her gently, "built on the foundation you provided." "Alex made me forget that foundations matter," she whispered, and I could hear her crying softly. "He made me forget to be proud of you. And now I'm remembering all those Sunday dinners I skipped because I was ashamed of your stories about construction projects. Those projects built the world I work in. Your stories were about creating the infrastructure that supports everything I do." That afternoon, Emma posted something on her LinkedIn that made me prouder than any business achievement I'd ever accomplished. "Proud daughter moment. My father built the data centers that power the apps you use, the servers that host the websites you visit, and the infrastructure that supports Austin's tech boom. Tom Wilson of Wilson Construction taught me that innovation requires both vision and execution. Every foundation matters. Every builder matters. Thanks, Dad, for showing me that authentic success comes from creating value, not just talking about it." The post received 2,400 likes and 340 comments, mostly from tech professionals sharing their own stories about family members in traditional industries who'd supported their careers. Alex's LinkedIn response was predictably defensive. "Great to see Emma celebrating family. Innovation requires diverse perspectives and mutual respect among all community stakeholders. Corporate speak for, please don't fire me." But the most significant consequences weren't professional. They were personal. Saturday evening, Emma and Alex came to my ranch for dinner. It was Alex's first time at my home, and I watched him process the reality of Tom Wilson's actual circumstances. The house sits on 47 acres in West Austin, built from limestone quarried on the property. 4 bedrooms, chef's kitchen, wine cellar, a workshop that's better equipped than most construction companies' main facilities. The garage holds 5 vehicles. The F-450 he'd mocked, a 1967 Mustang I'd restored myself, a BMW touring bike for weekend rides, a vintage Airstream trailer for camping trips, and Emma's college graduation present, a Tesla Model Y she'd forgotten I bought her. "You never mentioned the house," Alex said quietly. "You never asked," I replied. We ate dinner on the back porch overlooking the hill country. Alex was subdued, polite, asking thoughtful questions about Wilson Construction's history and my transition from welder to business owner. "Tom, can I ask you something?" "Sure." "Why didn't you tell me who you were when I was being disrespectful?" I considered the question while pouring coffee from the French press Emma had given me for Christmas 3 years ago. "Because respect that has to be demanded isn't really respect, Alex. It's just fear dressed up as courtesy. You were judging me based on assumptions about construction workers, about people without Ivy League degrees, about what success looks like. If I'd told you about Wilson Construction's contracts and revenue, you might have treated me differently, but you wouldn't have learned anything. Emma reached across the table and squeezed my hand. What would I have learned? That a man's worth isn't determined by his vocabulary or his wardrobe or his college pedigree. It's determined by the value he creates, the people he serves, and the integrity with which he conducts himself. Alex nodded slowly. I owe you a massive apology. You owe me respect, Alex. Going forward. For the work I do, for the daughter you married, and for the fact that your success depends on infrastructure someone has to actually build. I looked at Emma, a warmth spreading through me. And Emma? Emma knows her own worth now. That's more important than any apology. We sat in comfortable silence, watching the sunset over Austin's skyline. Half the buildings visible from my porch had been constructed by Wilson construction crews. So what happens now? Alex asked. Now you decide what kind of man you want to be. Someone who looks down on people who built the world you live in, or someone who understands that innovation requires both dreamers and builders. Both dreamers and builders, he repeated, almost a whisper. Both dreamers and builders, I affirmed. 3 months later, Alex was promoted to senior product manager. Not because of connections or politics, but because he'd learned to work effectively with construction teams, municipal planners, and local contractors. His projects ran smoothly because he understood that technology success requires infrastructure excellence. Emma and I resumed our Sunday dinners. She brings Alex now, and he genuinely enjoys my construction stories, because he finally understands that those stories are about building the foundation his career stands on. Last month, Wilson Construction broke ground on Meta's second Austin data center. Alex is the client liaison, which means he coordinates between Meta's product teams and my construction crews. It's a $380 million project, our largest contract to date. Alex still drives the Tesla, but he bought Emma a Wilson Construction Company shirt for her birthday. She wears it to networking events now, proud to explain that her father built the servers hosting the websites her colleagues design. The shirt reads, Wilson Construction, building tomorrow's infrastructure today. Some people thought Alex learned his lesson the hard way. I think he learned it the right way. Because respect earned through understanding lasts longer than respect demanded through power. And foundations, whether they're made of concrete or character, are built to last. Honestly, seeing my daughter finally understand, it meant everything. But I have to ask you, if someone you loved was being pushed away, was being made to feel ashamed of you, how would you have handled it? What would you have done in my shoes? Tell me what you think, I really want to know.